Sergeant Daniel Cole's breath came in shallow, ragged gulps, each inhalation laced with the sharp tang of blood. Pain radiated from the gaping wound in his side, a deep gouge where a Vierian energy blade had nearly gutted him. The battle was over, if it could even be called a battle. It had been a massacre. The jungle world of Kasura, thick with choking humidity and the scent of scorched metal, bore silent witness to the slaughter. The remains of Cole's squad lay scattered among the foliage, their bodies broken and lifeless. Plasma burns sizzled against wet soil, casting an acrid stench into the air. He had fought, they all had, but the Vierians were too fast, too strong, and too damn confident in their superiority. Boots crunched over debris. The guttural, clicking language of the Vierians buzzed through the clearing, punctuated by laughter. They towered over Cole, their exoskeletal armor reflecting the dim light seeping through the canopy. They moved with the ease of victors, stepping past the human corpses as if they were mere obstacles. One of them knelt beside him, Commander Zarlith. His violet-hued mandibles curled in amusement as he observed the dying human. A sharp clawed hand reached down and plucked the combat knife from Cole's belt, twisting it between his fingers. Pathetic, Zarlith mused in heavily accented English. You humans always struggle, always think you're more than you are. But in the end, you are nothing. Another soldier chuckled, prodding Cole's motionless form with the barrel of his plasma rifle. Perhaps we should put him out of his misery. Zarlith shook his head, the glow of his ocular implants flickering. Why? He is already dead. Let the jungle claim him. It is a fitting end for a lesser creature. They turned their backs on him, laughing as they strode away. Even as Cole's vision darkened, even as every nerve in his body screamed for rest, something colder than pain settled into his bones. They had made a mistake. Darkness swelled, dragging him under. When his eyes opened again, hours had passed. The jungle had reclaimed its eerie quiet, the sounds of battle replaced by the distant chittering of unseen predators. He lay on his back, staring up at the thick canopy above. His limbs felt heavy, leaden with blood loss. But he wasn't dead. Not yet. With a grunt, he forced himself to move. Every motion sent fresh agony lancing through his torso, but he gritted his teeth and pressed on, rolling onto his side. His fingers found the dirt, the slickness of blood mixing with the damp earth. He couldn't stay here. Pushing up onto his knees, he scanned the battlefield. The bodies of his fallen brothers in arms littered the clearing, their weapons lying useless beside them. He clenched his jaw, forcing away the grief. He had no time for mourning. He dragged himself toward a fallen comrade, Corporal Harris. The man's vacant eyes stared up at the canopy, unblinking. Cole muttered a silent apology as he rifled through the man's gear. He found a half-empty canister of biofoam, which he pressed against his wound. The hiss of expanding foam filled the air, sealing the worst of the damage. The pain dulled but didn't vanish. It never would. Next, he secured a sidearm, a battered but functional M9 pistol. 2 rounds left in the magazine. Not much, but better than nothing. A combat knife, similar to the one Zarlith had stolen from him, was strapped to Harris's vest. He took that too. Survival was no longer the goal. Revenge was. Cole's fingers tightened around the grip of his pistol as he forced himself to stand. The world wavered around him, his body weak from blood loss, but he swallowed the dizziness. The Vierians thought he was dead. That gave him an advantage. The jungle was thick, the air heavy with moisture. Every movement sent fresh beads of sweat trickling down his spine. He moved with practiced caution, sticking to the shadows, his boots barely making a sound against the moss-covered ground. He found their trail easily enough. Vierian warriors were strong, but subtlety wasn't in their nature. They left a clear path through the undergrowth, broken branches, deep boot imprints in the soil, the occasional discarded piece of gear. They had moved quickly, confident in their victory. Cole followed, his breath steadying despite the pain. The jungle was his ally now. He reached the edge of a ravine, where the remnants of a Vierian campfire still smoldered. They hadn't stayed long. Good. He dropped into a crouch, pressing his fingers against the damp soil. He wasn't just following them anymore. He was hunting them. Cole exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening around his knife. They had laughed at him. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. The night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying foliage. Sergeant Cole moved through the jungle like a ghost, his body protesting every step, but his mind burned with purpose. The pain in his side was a dull roar now, managed by sheer force of will and the crude biofoam patch. He wasn't dead, and that was all that mattered. He wasn't dead, and the Vierians had left him behind like discarded refuse. That mistake would cost them. He had counted 6 of them when they walked away from his body, their voices buzzing with amusement at his supposed demise. 6 heavily armed, highly trained Vierian warriors, confident in their strength and superior technology. Cole had seen their kind before, prideful, arrogant, dismissing humanity as nothing more than a footnote in galactic history. They believed humans lacked the raw genetic prowess of the Vierian species, the brute strength, the enhanced reaction time. But what they failed to understand, what they always failed to understand, was that humanity didn't fight fair. Cole crouched low behind the twisted roots of a massive jungle tree, watching their camp through the thick undergrowth. The fire had burned low, casting flickering shadows against the trees. The aliens had made themselves comfortable, stripping their armor down to the skeletal framework beneath. Their weapons were nearby, resting within reach, but not in hand. They were at ease, relaxed. Another mistake. His fingers curled around the grip of his sidearm, but he knew better than to go in guns blazing. 2 bullets. That was all he had. It wasn't enough to take them all out, not before they turned their rifles on him and finished what they started. No, this required patience, precision, and fear. Cole withdrew the combat knife from his belt, running his thumb along its edge. He forced himself to ignore the burning fatigue in his limbs. He needed to act before his body gave out. He scanned the camp, picking his target, the one on the outskirts, furthest from the others. The sentry, moving like a wraith, he slipped from the undergrowth, keeping low, his boots pressing into the soft earth without a sound. The Vierian soldier stood at the edge of the clearing, scanning the trees with lazy disinterest. His mandibles clicked softly, impatiently. These creatures were used to fighting enemies who broke under pressure, who ran when outnumbered. They weren't prepared for what was coming. Cole struck fast. One hand clamped over the alien's mouth, silencing the startled, chittering noise before it could form. The knife drove deep, slipping between the armor plating and puncturing the soft tissue beneath. The Vierian's body jerked, but Cole held firm, twisting the blade with practiced efficiency. The alien's struggles weakened, then ceased. Cole lowered the body to the ground without a sound. One down. His breathing was controlled, methodical. He withdrew the knife and wiped it against his pants, then eased forward, staying in the shadows. The others were still talking, oblivious. They hadn't even noticed their comrade was missing. Good. Cole reached the next target, a soldier sitting on a fallen log, cleaning a plasma rifle. The weapon was powerful, but useless in his hands now. Cole crept closer, his heart steady despite the odds. The jungle had always been his domain, ever since his first deployments on Earth. The thick canopy, the shifting shadows, the constant hum of unseen creatures. It was chaos to the untrained, but to Cole, it was cover. He moved in, swift and silent. This time, he struck lower, driving the blade upward into the Vierian's throat before the alien could react. A wet, choking sound escaped as the creature collapsed forward, spasming once before going still. 2 down. The fire crackled. The remaining 4 Vierians continued their conversation, unaware that death was moving among them. Cole crouched near the fallen alien, reaching for the plasma rifle. It was heavier than he expected, but familiar enough. He had trained with captured alien weapons before. The mechanics weren't much different from human firearms. Aim, squeeze, kill. Cole took aim at the next closest soldier, centering the sights on the base of its skull. One clean shot. He exhaled slowly, his grip steady, then fired. The plasma bolt burned through the Vierian's head, and the body collapsed instantly. The camp erupted into chaos. The remaining 3 warriors scrambled for their weapons, but Cole was already moving. He fired twice more, forcing them into cover. They shouted to one another, mandibles clicking in alarm. "He's alive," one of them hissed. Zarlith's voice cut through the panic. "It doesn't matter. We kill him now." Cole ducked behind a thick tree trunk as plasma bolts seared through the air, illuminating the jungle in bursts of blue light. The enemy was firing blind, spraying in all directions, hoping to hit him. They didn't realize he was already flanking. He moved low and fast, circling around. The Vierians had grouped together, backs to the fire, watching the direction of his last shot. He slipped behind them like a shadow. The first one never saw it coming. Cole drove his knife into the base of the alien's skull, twisting viciously. The Vierian jerked, then dropped. 2 left. They whirled in horror, but Cole was already diving forward, slamming into the next soldier with brutal force. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs. The Vierian snarled, claws raking across Cole's arm, drawing blood, but Cole didn't stop. He brought the knife down once, twice, 3 times, until the alien stopped moving. Only one left. Cole turned, panting, his body screaming for rest. Zarlith stood alone now, plasma rifle aimed directly at him. For the first time, the alien commander wasn't laughing. "You should be dead," Zarlith growled. Cole wiped blood from his mouth, gripping the knife tighter. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "You should have made sure." Zarlith fired. Cole twisted, barely dodging the bolt as it seared past his shoulder. The heat burned, but he ignored it, rushing forward. Zarlith fired again, missed. Then Cole was inside his guard. The knife flashed. Zarlith staggered back, his mandibles twitching in shock as blood spilled from the deep gash across his abdomen. His knees buckled, but he remained standing, glaring at Cole with hatred. "This is impossible," he rasped. Cole stepped closer, his voice a quiet growl. "Not impossible, just human." He drove the knife home. Zarlith crumpled. Cole exhaled, his vision swimming. His body felt like it was shutting down, the adrenaline wearing off, leaving only raw pain. He had won. He had killed them all, but he wasn't safe yet. Stumbling, he turned toward the jungle. He needed to move, because he knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Cole's breaths were ragged, shallow. His body screamed in protest, every muscle fraying under the weight of exhaustion. But he kept moving, forcing his way through the dense jungle, away from the corpses, away from the smoking embers of the Vierian camp. He had no illusions about what came next. They would come looking. A missing patrol, an unaccounted-for human. The Vierian chain of command wasn't known for its mercy, but they were brutal in their efficiency. The moment they realized their warriors were dead, the jungle would become a hunting ground. Cole would be the prey. His hand pressed against his wounded side, fingers slick with blood. The biofoam was holding, for now. He had no medkit, no reinforcements, no escape plan beyond sheer survival. The Vierians had left him for dead once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. A distant hum cut through the night air. Cole froze. He dropped to one knee, scanning the darkness between the trees. The jungle was alive with sound, the buzz of insects, the rustling of unseen creatures. But beneath it all was something unnatural. A low, thrumming noise, growing louder. Steady, rhythmic. A drone. Cole clenched his jaw. The Vierians weren't wasting time. His eyes darted upward, searching for glimpses of movement through the gaps in the thick canopy. Then he saw it, just a flicker of motion, the dull gleam of metal against the moonlight. A scout drone, hovering high, its optics scanning the forest floor. If it spotted him, he'd have minutes, at best, before the Vierians descended on his position. No time to run. Cole's gaze flicked to his surroundings, analyzing options. He was standing near the edge of a shallow ravine, a steep drop where the jungle floor gave way to tangled roots and jagged rocks. Above, vines stretched from the trees like grasping fingers. If he could time it right, the drone pivoted. Cole moved. He sprinted toward the ravine's edge and leaped, reaching for the nearest vine. His fingers barely caught hold, the sudden weight jarring his shoulders. His boots scraped against the rock face, finding no purchase. The vine groaned under his weight, but it held. The drone hovered where he had been seconds ago, scanning the area, its sensors probing the ground for heat signatures. Cole pressed himself against the rock, heart pounding. A single misstep, one breath too loud, and it would find him. Second crawled by. Then the drone adjusted course, drifting away, scanning deeper into the jungle. Cole didn't wait. He swung his body, building momentum, and launched himself toward the opposite ledge. His hands caught a thick root, his boots finding purchase in the dirt. Pain flared through his wounded side, but he bit down on it, pulling himself up and rolling onto solid ground. He lay still for a moment, muscles trembling, lungs burning. Then he pushed to his feet. The drone would report back. The Vierians would know something was wrong. He needed to keep moving. Cole pressed forward, forcing himself through the jungle, guided by instinct and memory. He was heading toward an old crash site, an abandoned human dropship from the first wave of battles on this world. If it was still intact, there might be supplies, weapons, a way to even the odds. A faint glow lit the horizon. Cole slowed, narrowing his eyes. Not firelight, not the artificial blue of plasma. This was something else, pulsing, shifting. Then he heard them. Voices. Vierian. He crouched low, inching forward, using the thick underbrush for cover. He reached the edge of a clearing and saw them. 3 Vierian soldiers, standing near the ruined remains of the human drop ship. The vessel was half buried in the jungle, its hull rusted and torn, but the emergency beacon was still active, flickering a dull red. The Vierians weren't scavenging. They were waiting. Cole's stomach tightened. They knew he was coming. A trap. The realization settled like ice in his gut. He had been predictable. The moment they found their missing squad, they must have anticipated his next move. Now they were here, watching the only place he had left to run. His fingers curled into fists. No weapons. No backup. 3 armed Vierians. He should retreat. Find another way. But Cole didn't retreat. He moved. Staying low, he circled the perimeter, keeping his footsteps light. The Vierians were focused on the beacon, talking among themselves. He couldn't understand their language, but he didn't need to. Their body language told him everything. Impatience, irritation, confidence. They weren't expecting him yet. That was their mistake. Cole reached the wreckage first, slipping through a jagged tear in the hull. Inside, the metal walls were coated in rust and jungle growth, but the emergency supply locker was intact. He wrenched it open, heart hammering. Inside, an old human rifle, a knife, 2 grenades. Not much, but enough. Cole slung the rifle over his shoulder and pulled the pin on one grenade. He held it for a second, just enough to reduce the enemy's reaction time. Then he threw. The explosion shattered the night. The jungle roared with fire and chaos as the blast sent the Vierian sprawling. Cole moved before the smoke cleared, rifle snapping up. He fired once, twice. One of them fell, its body jerking from the impact. The second one recovered, plasma rifle swinging toward him. Cole dove aside as a bolt of blue energy seared past his face, close enough to burn the air. He hit the ground, rolling, bringing his own weapon up. He fired. The second VA crumpled. The third soldier roared, charging, closing the distance too fast for Cole to react. They crashed together, the rifle knocked from his hands, the impact slamming him against the wreckage. Clawed hands wrapped around his throat, crushing. Cole's vision blurred. He reached for his belt. The knife. With the last of his strength, he drove it forward. The blade sank deep into the VA chest. A strangled noise escaped the alien's throat, its grip loosening. Cole twisted the knife, yanking it free. The VA staggered back, then collapsed. Silence. Cole slumped against the wreckage, chest heaving. His limbs trembled, his body wrecked, but he was still alive. And the trap had failed. He took a shuddering breath, forcing himself to his feet. The beacon was still flashing, still sending a signal. He had no doubt the VA would send more troops. But this time, he wouldn't run. He would be ready. The jungle was no longer just a battlefield. It was a graveyard. Smoke curled from the ruined drop ship. The bodies of the fallen Durians sprawled in the underbrush, their armor slick with blood. The emergency beacon still pulsed its silent warning, a call that could not be undone. Cole stood in its red glow, body wrecked, fingers clenched around the rifle. The pain in his side was worsening, his breath a ragged thing that barely filled his lungs. He had fought through worse. He could fight through this. The VA would come. Not a scouting party this time. Not 3 overconfident warriors. A full strike team. Cole exhaled slowly, scanning the wreckage. He needed an edge. Something more than just bullets and blood. The ship was gutted, but its systems, some of them, still clung to life. He limped inside, pushing through rusted debris, forcing himself to think beyond the pain. Power core, fuel cells. His mind pieced together possibilities, instinct and training blending into something lethal. The ship's old fusion drive was dead, but emergency cells still hummed faintly, their energy reserves minimal but volatile. If he could overload them. A flicker of movement outside. Cole's head snapped up. Shadows among the trees. They were here. He moved. Fast. Grabbing a length of broken wiring. He worked with shaking hands, tearing open a panel and twisting exposed leads together. Sparks flared, the system humming louder. The cells were unstable, already corroded from years of neglect. It wouldn't take much. Boots crunched outside. The VA weren't creeping anymore. They had numbers. They had confidence. They thought this was over. Cole grabbed the second grenade from his belt and pulled the pin. He wedged it against the exposed wiring, securing it to the bundle of ruptured power cells. A crude timer. A death trap waiting to be sprung. Then he moved. Slipping through the torn hull, he crept into the underbrush, rifle raised, muscles coiled despite the agony in his side. The VA emerged. 6 of them. Their armor gleamed in the red light of the beacon, rifles sweeping the clearing. One of them, taller than the rest, barked an order in their guttural tongue. They spread out. Cole steadied his breath, pressing low against the jungle floor. The leader gestured toward the wreckage, and 2 soldiers moved inside, disappearing into the darkness. 30 seconds. Cole adjusted his grip on the rifle. One of the remaining VA turned. Too slow. Cole squeezed the trigger. The shot took the alien through the throat, snapping its head back. The others roared in alarm, weapons swinging toward his position. He was already moving, ducking behind the thick roots of an ancient tree as plasma fire ripped through the air, searing the jungle in flashes of blue. He counted the seconds. Inside the wreckage, the 2 VA must have seen the grenade. He heard a sharp cry of warning. Too late. The explosion split the night. The drop ship erupted in a blast of white-hot fury, a shockwave tearing through the clearing. A wall of heat and force slammed into Cole, but he was ready, braced against the roots as debris rained down. 2 more VA were dead. 3 left. They were disoriented, armor scorched, caught off guard. Cole didn't give them a chance to recover. He surged forward, rifle up, firing in tight, controlled bursts. One fell. The leader snarled, pivoting, plasma rifle rising. Cole threw himself forward, closing the distance. He slammed into the Valerian, driving a shoulder into its chest. The alien staggered, but its strength was monstrous. It lashed out, claws raking across Cole's wounded side. Pain lanced through him, nearly buckling his knees. He gritted his teeth, twisting, driving his elbow into the creature's throat. It reeled, coughing, but before he could press the advantage, the last Valerian crashed into him from behind. They hit the ground hard. Cole rolled, grappling, struggling against overwhelming strength. The Valerian's knee pinned his chest, claws wrapping around his throat, squeezing. Darkness swam at the edges of his vision. Not like this. His hand found the knife. He rammed it upward. The blade punched through the Valerian's jaw, up into its skull. The alien went rigid. Then it collapsed. Cole gasped, dragging in ragged breaths, the weight of the corpse pressing into him. He shoved it off, forcing himself to his feet. Only one left. The leader. It was waiting. Plasma rifle discarded, blade in hand. Its golden eyes burned with something beyond rage. This was personal now. Cole understood. He tossed his own rifle aside, drawing his knife. No words. No hesitation. They lunged. The Valerian was fast, but Cole was faster. The alien's blade slashed toward his throat, but he twisted, feeling the whisper of steel past his skin. He countered, driving his knife into the Valerian's side, a deep, brutal thrust. The alien howled, but its own knife came up, carving across Cole's ribs. Blood slicked both of them. Cole didn't stop. He yanked the knife free and plunged it again, driving the Valerian back, forcing it to its knees. The alien looked up, breath shuddering, realization dawning. Cole grabbed its own blade and rammed it into its throat. The Valerian gurgled. Then it was over. Silence fell over the jungle. Cole stood there, swaying, blood dripping from his fingers. His chest rose and fell in ragged bursts. The beacon still flashed, but no more Valerians were coming. He had won. Cole exhaled, wiping the blood from his face, the exhaustion settling in his bones. He turned, stepping into the jungle's embrace. The war wasn't over, but this battle was, and he was still standing,